Hello, everyone. I think nobody has joined this yet. I sent the link on the groups and even on the portal, so I'm just waiting for people to join. And oh, that. And I'll have to open the link myself. Check. Interesting. Oh, I think it's just me who's watching. Oh, hello, Alvin. I can see you. Yeah, my mom just temporarily came in. Anyway, can you guys hear me? I can't hear myself, but okay, that's brilliant. I'm just waiting for other people to join in. There are four people watching, and I'm expecting like five, six people. So yeah, I'll just wait till everyone joins. Okay, nice. Anyway, so you guys must have watched the video that I sent you. What do you think about it, and what exactly did you understand that we're going to do today? Like, do you guys know rules of procedure from before? Are you all, do none of you know what rules of procedure are about? Just give me a yes or no if you know what rules of procedure are. No answers, just someone. Okay, partially. Arvind says he knows partially. What about everyone else? Aarti, I can see Aarti. I don't know who else is watching. Just say hi, Captain, if you're watching this, so that I know you're watching this, and I can start. Hey, Pooja. Pooja, do you know what rules of procedure are? Okay. She says, oh, you can't hear Aarti. That's weird because I think just log out of the link and go on the link again. Maybe you'll be able to hear. Hey, it's Gayatri. Hi, Gayatri. Okay, so Shweta says she knows yes. Yes, so yeah, the link that I sent on the group before, but that's not it. Like there is much more to it. So that's what we'll be discussing here today. So I guess like more or less everyone's here. I don't see Kesha. And who else do I not see? I don't see Radhika. I don't see. Yeah, Advin's there. Ishwarya's there. Okay. So I guess it's just Radhika and Keshav who are not here. Aarti, can you still not hear and see me? Maybe she'll be able to hear in a while. I don't know. Uh, okay. Keshav's also here. Okay, so we'll start then in that case, I guess more or less everyone's there. So first we'll talk about what rules of procedure are exactly. Okay, it's refreshed now. It's cool. Okay. So we're going to talk about what rules of procedure are exactly. So what we mean when we say rules of procedure, right? So let us take an example. Like you go and debate in any format. Let's say conventional debating, right? In conventional debating, there's a certain procedure in the sense that every speaker gets a certain time limit to speak, or say, for instance, like there is a certain order in which the speakers are supposed to speak, there is a certain manner in which the speakers are supposed to speak, which means that any form of debating has a certain rule that helps us in moderating the debate, right? That makes sure that everybody has a chance to say, keep their point of view forward, and also has a chance to, say what they want to in a stipulated amount of time so that none of the time is wasted, right? So that we can make most of the time that is available to us to debate. So similarly, at an MUN, there is something called the rules of procedure, right? Now we won't go into extreme details about the rules of procedure today. We will just review them from like the surface so that you have a general idea, and then we can go into the minor details. So what are exactly rules of procedure? So in an MUN, when you go, basically, you're allotted a country, and for instance, you are given basically you're given a portfolio, and there's a certain agenda. So, and you need to like prepare something on that agenda, right? You need to research. Like now we'll see two or three things in the coming sessions. One is, what is this research about? What are these agendas usually about? And how do you understand these agendas? Thirdly, what are the questions you ask yourself when basically you are going for an MUN, when you are preparing for an agenda? And fourthly are, how do you communicate your ideas? Like how do you make sure that what you're saying stands out in the committee in order to maybe win? I mean, that's not what you go there for, but like anyway. So I just want to know how many of you have done an MUN before? Just say a yes or no, so that you know. Okay, no one's saying anything. Hmm. Okay, that's the main problem. I can't figure out how to do research. Okay, that's great. None of you have been to an MU, and that's really nice actually. So that we can, build a fresh perspective on them. Yeah, Keshav, I know, has done some MUNs. Okay. So, yeah. So the first thing is that rules of procedure, right? So when you go to a committee first, for the first time when you enter a committee, what you'll see, right? And this is what the video shows you. It shows you that there are certain people with placards, like placards are those things that your country is written on. And then there is something called the executive board. The executive board are basically the people who moderate the debate, right? Who is following the rules, who make sure that everybody's following their foreign policy. There are basically two things that you'll see in an when you go inside an MUN committee, and these are those two things. Now, as far as it's concerned, as far as rules of procedure are concerned, what are rules of procedure, right? So, like I said before, like any form of debating needs a certain set of rules, right? As to how much the speaker, how much time the speaker speaks for, etc., etc. I'm not going to repeat that. See how debate goes in an MUN, right? So when you go in an MU and you're sitting in the committee amongst all the people who are who have different portfolios, right? And everybody needs a chance to speak what they think about the topic, etc. So debate is divided into certain parts, right? These parts are, one is formal debating and the second is informal debating, right? Now, what do we mean when we say formal debating? The word formal itself means that it's something that's, has a certain track to it, has a certain sort of moderation to it, has a certain sort of professionality about it. Like there, it's like people are not saying whatever they want. They're being careful of their words because they're in a setting where they have to be careful, right? So that's the first type of debating that happens in Nemian. That is a formal debate, right? And then we have a second type, which is an informal debate. Now, what an informal debate means is basically it's less moderated, right? Or you have more freedom. Oh, sorry, my phone's. Or you have more freedom to say what you want to say, right? Or there is less amount of scrutiny of what you're saying. So that's what an informal debate is about, right? Now I'll just open the screen share so that I can write things down for you as we go. Who wants to share content? Hey, can you guys see the screen share? But I think there is some issue, like this is capturing like multiple screens and all. Okay, anyway. Yeah, I guess now it's nah, this is bad. Is it just me or can you guys also see? Okay. So that's not the entire point of our this thing. I just wanted to open a document. Let me just open a document. Yeah, I'll just go to my drive folder. Oh, what did I do? Okay, just give me a new folder. I'm so sorry about this. I can't find. Okay, is it still showing infinite number of screens? Yeah, there's some issues with this thing. Anyway, I hope you guys can see this. I'm just opening a new. Yeah. Okay, can you guys see the this little dialog box purple colored thing on the screen? Just say a yes if you can. Yeah, I'm aware of that, except the fact that if I don't open that window, then I wouldn't be able to see the questions that you guys are asking. Hence, I have to keep that window open as well. So anyway, as long as you can see this thing, I'm just going to increase the size of this thing so that you don't see the background. Okay, now I believe it's visible. And now I believe that the entire length is visible of this thing. You can't see the things in the background. Okay, I believe it's fine. So that, like I said, there are two types of debating. One we say is the informal type of debating, and one we say is the formal debate, right? Yeah. So when you're talking about formal debate, there are certain key points to remember, right? One of these key points is that it's moderated. Debate is moderated in a sense, but it's more formal, it's more professional. Then let's say you have to be more careful about what you say. And lastly, it's more generic. It's more generic. So this last point that we're going to talk about here is the important point. We'll come back to this later. Right. So now let us see what the formal debating is about, right? So essentially, there are two things in an MUN apart from formal and informal debating. They are known as points and motions, right? Now we'll come to points later. Let us see what motions are. Motions are essentially okay. How is informal debate? No, no, no. I meant formal debate. That's what I wrote, right? I wrote formal, right? Formal is all of these things, right? So let us come to the next thing. That is what we're talking about are motions, right? So what are essentially motions? So let's say, for example, there are a lot of people in MUN, and basically it's the people in the committee who are deciding as to what we need to do next, right? People decide what is it that needs to be done, what is it that needs to be discussed, etc., things like that. So then, in order to for people to know what how we are proceeding next, there needs to be a certain consensus, right? There needs to be a certain consensus among people. Okay, I don't know how to spell it. Certain agreement, let's say, amongst people in order to like make sure that they agree that this is how we want to proceed with the committee, right? So motions are basically things that help us to know how do we proceed forward with the committee. So say for example that I raise a motion and I say, okay, now I want the committee to move to formal debating, right? Now I want the committee to start a formal debate, like to start a formal session so that we can, make our statements in that session, right? And that's what a motion is in a sense. So there's a certain wording to a motion, has a certain specific wording. Yeah. There is certain specific wording to a motion and which we'll come to later, right? But in a sense, motions are things that help us move forward our debates, right? That's basically what motions are. So now, let's say that the committee has started and now we want to move to a formal debate, right? We'll come to the details of what happens in the formal debate now. So now we need to move to a formal debate. So someone raises a motion, say for example, a more experienced delegate, let's just say, who knows how procedure works, says, uh, the delegate of so and so country, the delegate of India, let's say for example, would like to raise a motion to enter, to move, sorry, to move into formal, formal to move into formal session, right? So now we have established that, okay, and then like the executive board, they'll ask how many people are for this motion, how many people are against this motion. Say, for example, we are in a committee of 12 people, total strength of our committee is 12 people, and say, let's just say 7 people vote a yes, 7 people are for the motion, right? That implies that now we have moved into formal session, right? So if a motion gains the majority amount of the strength of the committee, if majority of the people from the committee, which is 50 plus one number of votes, that's 7 votes for a committee of 10 people, vote in favor of the motion, that means that we have the motion has passed and we have moved into formal debating, right? right? Now the next motion will be about, let's just say, okay, so in a formal debate, what basically happens is that the executive board asks you to raise your placard, which is the thing that your country's name is written on. And then they say that, okay, we are going to choose 10 people who are going to come and make their statements first. Right? So what will happen is they'll ask you speakers wishing to speak on the general speakers list. Right? Now the formal debate, basically the list that is made in order for people to come and speak, the order in which the people come and speak in a formal debate is known as the general speakers list. Okay. So how do we enter into a general speakers list? So once we have moved into formal session, everybody's settled down and the EB is there. How do we make sure, how do we now proceed to the general speakers list? So some, like say someone raises a motion, say for example, the delegate of Russia, the executive board recognizes the delegate of Russia, the delegate of Russia gets up, the delegate of Russia says, the delegate of Russia would like to raise a motion to move into okay, no, that's not how you raise a motion for that. To start the general speakers list, say for example, that's not the exact correct syntax for it, and I'll come to that later. What's exactly the syntax? Like I'll give it to you in writing, so don't worry. But let's just say that's how it's roughly done. Like say to start the general speakers list, and then we have to establish a total time for not a total time. General speakers list does not have a total time. It's an inexhaustible list. We'll come to that in a while, but it has a individual speaker's time as to how long an individual speaker can speak in the general speakers list. So let's just say the delegate of Russia would like to raise a motion to start the general speakers list for a total for individual speakers time of 90 seconds, right? So the other variations are 120 seconds, or 60 seconds. Basically, it's in multiple of 15, right? It's multiple of 50. So basically, we have this. Now we have established the general speakers list, and everybody's in the mood for debating. So now let's come to like what do we discuss in the general speakers list, right? What exactly is happening over here? So now that the general speakers list has been established, the executive board is going to ask, are there any delegates wishing to speak in the general speakers list, right? And then if you have a statement to make, if you have an opening statement to make, so what exactly is the kind of stuff you can say in a general speakers list, right? So it's for, so GSL, we'll take the short form. The GSL is for A, making opening statements. And what are these opening statements about? Opening statements are basically about what you feel about the agenda, B, what your country's stance is, or say for example, what do you expect out of this committee, right? So we'll come to each point one by one. So let us say that you have to make a general speakers list speech, and say for example that the total time for making this speech is 90 seconds, right? How do you go about it? So basically it's an opening statement, right? And an opening statement means that you need to make clear what you feel about the agenda. Say for example, we take an agenda, we talking about, the other day we were talking about the Syrian crisis. So as a country like India, what is your take on the Syrian crisis? Say for example, the country feels that my country as India feels that, say for example, the United States government is wrong in intervening in the situation in Syria, and what I expect this committee to do, what my country's stance is that I do not like the intervention of United States into Syria. What I expect this committee to do is stop the intervention of United States into the Syrian situation and stabilize the situation and provide aid to the people who are injured, and so on and so forth. Basically, I set 3-4 metrics. Yeah, that these are the things that I want to achieve out of this committee, right? And that's first basically you talk about in your general speakers list. Just give everyone an overview as to how are you going to, say for instance, go about your things. So at this point, I'm going to take any questions. So if you guys have any questions, you can just type them out. Also, during while I'm speaking, if you have any question, I would like that you type it out so that I don't go too fast or something. So are there any questions, or am I going too fast, or any thoughts that you want to share up till now? You can do so. Is everyone posted? Yeah. Okay, if you don't have any questions, just say no so that I know that I haven't lost you. Okay, Vaishnavi says no, Ishwara says no. Arvind says no. That's good. That's good. Keshav says no. Okay. So, okay. Also, guys, like you can just post your questions while I'm speaking. That would be great, and would give me some, insight into what you're thinking and whether you're still there or not. That'd be good. So yeah. So when we were talking about the general speakers list, right? So now that we are in the formal session, we are in the general speakers list. We know we have our general speakers list speech ready. So the executive board asks us, are there any people wishing to speak on the general speakers list? So then you raise your placard. You're like, yeah, I want to speak on the list, right? So you raise your placard. And then the executive board recognizes, say, 3-4 countries, right? Say, okay, a delegate of India, followed by a delegate of, okay, I think, delegate of India, followed by delegate of Russia. Okay, I can't, okay, I think this is running out of space. Sorry. Yeah. So they say delegate of India, followed by delegate of Russia, followed by some other delegate, say for instance France or something they have in mind. So then they take speakers for the general speakers list like that. And yeah, and that's about it. And then we just know that, okay, these are the people that are going to speak in the general speakers list. So then we take speaker by speaker, right? First, the delegate of India comes up on the podium, they give their opening statement, then they go back, then Russia comes up, then France comes up, and so on and so forth, right? Now, what you have to understand is that a general speakers list is an inexhaustible list, right? It's an inexhaustible list. What an inexhaustible list means is that it does not end till the end of the committee, right? Matlab, it keeps going on and on and on till the entire session lasts. Now is what we will answer later. Okay. So yeah, now that we've seen, okay, so let's say for instance, France, okay, now France, and then say we have another country, Germany, that's on the general speakers list, right? Now, after this is done, let's say, for instance, the executive board feels that, yeah, now that 2-3 people have made their opening statements, the committee has a clear idea about what people want from this agenda, what people want from this committee. So now is the time for more targeted discussions. Okay, so more targeted discussion. Okay. What I mean by more targeted discussion is that the discussion should be topic wise, say for example, either about humanitarian situation or about the military situation or about the aid, providing aid, for people who are affected. Basically, we need to have discussions on subtopics, we need to have discussion on how we divide the agenda into subtopics. Say, for example, we're talking about the Syrian war, right? I'm taking the Syrian war example because we did a activity on this. So within the Syrian war, there are certain things, right? There are certain things that we need to solve. A is we need to make sure there are peace talks. Secondly, that there is humanitarian aid to the people of Syria. Thirdly, we need to make sure that the military situation is under control, etc. Right? So what we see here is that since every topic has certain subtopics to it, it doesn't make sense for us to keep continuing with the GSL, right? Because essentially because that's not going to achieve us anything because of the fact that people are just going to keep talking about generic stuff or what they feel, right? There's not going to be any solution oriented discussion, right? So in order to have a solution oriented discussion, a more informal discussion, we move into the second type of session, that is informal debate. I'm just going to, yeah. So we move into the second type of session, which is the informal debate, right? Now the informal debate has two parts to it, right? One is an unmoderated caucus. The second is a moderated caucus. Let's go over that one by one. We'll take the moderated caucus first, right? So what is basically a moderated caucus is about is it is similar to a general speakers list, but A, it has a certain subtopic, it has a certain topic, right? And B, it has the discussion is targeted. It's not generic, unlike the general speaker list. And C, it has a time limit. A moderated caucus is not inexhaustible. Okay, the word caucus itself means like caucus is basically kind of a, you know, one of those Greek root words, which basically means a meeting, sort of like it's nothing. It just means a meeting. Yeah. So moderated caucus, it has a certain topic, the discussion is targeted, and it has a time limit, right? Because when we are discussing subtopics, there needs to be a certain time limit for which we discuss each subtopic, right? Otherwise, we'll go too much into one topic and won't have enough time to discuss the other topics. So that's why it has a time limit on it. And then obviously it has an individual speaker's time, right? So how do we move into a moderated caucus? How do we change from a general speakers list to a moderated caucus discussion? So say, for example, two, three speakers have already spoken. So we are at France, right? And now the executive board feels that now it's the time for some informal discussion, some targeted discussion on a certain subtopic, like say peace talks, you know. So then they ask, are there any motions on the floor, right? Where they're looking for people to raise motions in order to start a moderated caucus, right? To see if the committee is in agreement to start a moderated caucus. So then someone raises a motion, say for example, the delegate of Germany would like to raise a motion suspend. Okay, so first we're suspending the formal debate. And then we move into a moderated caucus and move into a moderated caucus for a total time, say 20 minutes, 20 minutes. The other variation can be 15 minutes, or yeah, or we can have one for 10 minutes. Yeah, one to yes, right? For a total time of / with individual speakers time. You have to define the individual speaker's time, which could be either 60 seconds or 90 seconds or 60 and 90. That's all that can happen in a moderated caucus. And where individual speakers time are 60 or 90 seconds. And okay, so sorry, we can't have a moderated caucus for 10 minutes. It can either be 20 minutes or 15 minutes because it's multiples of 15. Okay, yeah, where was I? So yeah, then we go like on the topic, right? That's the most important part, on the topic uh, of facilitating peace talks between USA and Syria. Let's just say that we want to discuss that topic first, you know. So then this motion is raised, it's in order, you know, the executive board says, oh, well, right, this motion is in order, we can vote on this motion, right? However, it might be true that this is not the only motion that people want to discuss, right? Some people in the committee might think that, oh, maybe the humanitarian aid part is the more important part, right? Instead of focusing on peace talks, our priority should be having humanitarian aid, say, for example. So, for the benefit of the committee, the executive board always takes three motions in an order, right? It always takes three, it doesn't take a single motion, and it takes three motions together, and then each of them are voted upon. So if the first motion passes, then the rest of the two are not voted upon. If the second motion, if the first doesn't pass, the second passes, then it goes on, like then it is executed, and if both don't pass, then the third one is voted upon, right? So that's how it generally goes, right? So at this point, I'd also like to define an unmoderated caucus, because usually moderated and unmoderated caucus motions are taken together, right? They're taken together in groups of three. Right now, so the idea, word moderated suggests that the moderated caucus is actually about some sort of moderation, right? Where people are called one by one. Say, for instance, there is a certain time limit on it, on the amount of time that each person can speak on. So there's some amount of moderation, right? Where there is some amount of restriction, and the executive board is directly a part of the discussion that's going on, moderating the discussion. Now, what an unmoderated caucus suggests is that it's unmoderated. Basically, people can go around, you know, talk to each other, build some sort of agreement on what they think is important. Because ultimately, what is passing motions about? Passing motions is about gaining a majority, right? So, say for example, I, as a delegate of Germany, feel that okay, peace talks is the most important issue, then I need to gain some sort of support for my cause, right? Some sort of support for my motion in order for it to pass, in order for majority of people to vote for it, right? So for that, I might need an unmoderated caucus where I can just, you know, roam about freely in the committee and talk to people and make sure that uh, people vote for my motion, or people are on the same tangent or on the same mental level as I am about the topic at large, right? So, say for example, the executive board says, "Are there any other motions?" So then we take our second motion, right? So the delegate of Russia raises the second motion. Where's my caps lock? The delegate of Russia would like to raise a motion. Now, since the first motion has already suspended the formal debate, the next motion does not need to. Would like to raise a motion for an unmoderated caucus for a total time of say 20 minutes. The moderation 20 minutes. The other could be 15 minutes. And the third could be say 10 minutes, yeah. And 5 minutes also, yeah. There are moderate caucus for 5 minutes as well. Yeah, so those could be the moderation for our unmoderated caucus. And yeah, basically, so you see there's no individual speaker's time. People just move about for those 20 minutes, and after the 20 minutes, they have to settle down on their seats. That's what happens, basically. Then we have the third motion, the delegate of, say, France, so and so and so, like to raise a motion to suspend formal debate. No, we don't have to suspend formal debate again. Move into a moderate caucus for a total time 20 minutes. Individual speaker time 60 seconds on the topic. Say providing humanitarian. I'm not going to write it again and again. I'm just going to write like 2060. So that means 20 minutes and 60 seconds, right? And I'm just going to write the topic of the moderated caucus. So yeah, that's how it works. Now we have a three motions. So let's say, for example, okay, we can take a live voting. Let's say, why not? So all of you who would like to discuss the first motion, which is about facilitating peace talks between USA and Syria, say a yes on the live chat. Hmm. I don't think anybody's got on to this yet. Okay, it's live. Nobody wants to discuss? Okay, Karen wants to. Yeah, even I want to. Okay, you have to either vote in a yes or a no. So you have to either say yes or a no so that I can tell you if the motion's passed or not, and then we can see if there's a consensus, and then we can like have a live demonstration of how voting happens. So in any procedural vote like this, say for example, there is 7 of you plus 1 me, that makes it 8 people, right? So for any procedural voting in our little session, we need to have a total of 5 people voting a yes, and that's what's going to pass the motion, right? So yeah, we have 4 yeses, and even I'll say yes. So let's just assume no, okay, we have to wait for everyone to vote because it's necessary. It's compulsory to vote in a procedural vote. You can't abstain from voting, so you have to raise your placard if a vote on a motion is being taken, right? Okay, Aarti said no. Why? Anyway, okay. Let's just say that yeah. Okay, so we have yeah. So there's 4 yeses. There's 5 yeses, and let's just assume that there are 3 no's. That Keshav also says no's. So with 5 yeses and 3 no's, this motion passes, right? So now that this motion's passed, we're going to start debating on this motion, and then the rest of the motions are scraped off. We don't vote on them because this motion's passed, right? So that's how it works. So now we are in a moderated caucus of a total time for this is what the executive board will say after the motion passes. We are in a moderated caucus for a total time of 20 minutes, individual speakers' time of 60 seconds on the topic facilitating peace talks between USA and Russia. Delegates wishing to speak in this moderated caucus, please raise your placards, right? And that's when you're supposed to raise your placards if you want to speak. So then the executive board will recognize people one by one. They will recognize as many speakers as the time limit allows. So say for instance, our time limit is 2060, which means that we can accommodate 20 speakers in this moderated caucus if each speaker speaks for 1 minute, right? Simple math. What would happen if the votes are even? That usually doesn't happen, but yeah, if the votes are even, then the motion scraped off. Then we vote on the next motion because a clear majority means a 50 plus 1, which means a 50% plus 1 vote. So yeah, then the motion scraped off. Then we vote. Then we considered it failed. Yeah, so we then move on to the next motion. That's what happens. And yeah, say for instance, this also happens sometimes that delegates don't like all the 3 of the motions, or the delegates raising all the 3 of the motions could not generate enough support for the cause of their motion and why it should be discussed, etc. So all the 3 motions fail, and then what do we do in that situation? In that situation, we know we have a speaker left on our general speakers list, which is our friend Germany. So we just revert back to the general speakers list. And that's why the general speakers list is an inexhaustible list, because whenever all the motions fail and the committee is not moving forward, we just go back to the GSL. Like that's what we do. And then after 2, 3 more people, we just come back, we just take motions again. And then we either move into a moderated caucus or an unmoderated caucus. In a moderated caucus, like I'll just run you over it again. There's a certain topic, so you got to discuss on that topic. There's a time limit, etc., etc. So yes, I guess this provides a good overview of basically what is in an MUN, what are motions, formal debate, informal debate. Now, I don't want to give too much information at one time because it becomes exhausting. Yeah. So, I hope you guys learned something from this. If there's any question that you guys want to ask, now's the time to ask them because I'll be kind of winding up and I'd like to solve all your doubts before that. Okay, that's great. So yeah, this was our rules of procedure one session. We'll have a second session on rules of procedure as well, in which no, the arbitrary caucus is for the personal thing for the delegates. But yeah, sometimes the executive board does take into account how much how good people are at convincing other people, how good they are at their diplomatic skills to make sure that people vote for their motion and stuff. So yeah, sometimes it's evaluated, but yeah, sometimes it's not, like depends on the people who are moderating. But in a sense, it's not supposed to be evaluated because it's not supposed to be moderated at all. So yeah, I mean, I don't do it, I don't evaluate it basically. Obviously, they do. Yeah, that's their job. Make sure that the delegates are discussing the right things and etc. Yeah, in a moderated caucus, in a general speakers list, what is the point of the point of the formal debate is that it sets a guideline for the committee. It makes sure that which people are on the same wavelength as you, which are the people you can talk to. Uh, there is no resolve. There is resolve. So you have to understand this, right? In the starting of the committee, in order to lobby, in order to make sure who is your diplomatic ally, which people have the same interests on the agenda as you do, you need to make sure that you need to know about what do people feel on the issue. And in order to set the tone of the committee, in order to make sure that people are aware of who their allies are and who are the people that they can, collaborate with, the formal debate is very important because that tells you a general overview on things, right? Because you might not agree on the finer details with a certain country, but you might agree in the final goal or in the final stance that they have towards the issue. And that's why it's kind of important. I hope that answers the question. All right. I think there are no more questions. And if there are any, I'll just take them on WhatsApp. No, okay, I'll wait. Okay, you can just say that you're all clear. Just write all clear if you're all clear on everything. And then I'll just log out of the uh, stream. What if all the motions doesn't get voted upon, right? So all the motions will get voted upon, but say for instance, if all the three motion fails, and this is what we were talking about, in case all the three motions fail, then we move back to our general speakers list. Then the general speakers list starts again, and people start making generic statements. And then after 2, 3 speakers in the general speakers list, the executive board again asks for motions, and then uh, you know then they can basically, once they ask for motions again, then they can raise the motion again, and yeah, so on. And obviously something gets voted upon because even people want the committee to proceed, so that doesn't usually happen. I hope that answers your question, Karen. right, so I'll be logging out now. Thank you guys for being such a patient audience. And I'll see you guys next time. Okay, bye bye.